people say, why do we do what we do? Because we know we can make a difference. And not only make a difference, but think of it as a pebble. We threw it in, then those people will go on to make a difference. And so it's God's circle of impact. And so at the end of every prayer, we say, and dear Lord, remind us to always make a positive difference in the lives we touch. My brother invited me to a Christmas party of a mutual friend. I knew the mutual friend, but I walked in the door and I'm in wool shorts and a wool turtleneck and there's no heat in the house. And yet I see him in a blue jacket and a white turtleneck and gray pants. And I turned to my friend, I said, I'm gonna go meet him.
I was in the seminary studying to be a priest, and I kept saying, God, send me a sign, because this is getting harder, the whole celibacy thing. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And so I said, give me a sign. And she walked in the door and I went, I'll take it from here.
The funniest part of all of this is the question you asked me when we sat down. What do you think of Teilhard de Chardin?
But I only asked that question after I'd said, well, what are you doing at Webster University? She says, I'm thinking of becoming a nun. And she was stylishly dressed, a beautiful young woman, questions only a nun type person would know. And it was an obscure question of, do you know Teilhard de Chardin? And she did.
I said, do you mean the philosopher or the botanist? And he wasn't happy about that. We looked at our watches and it was 2 o'clock in the morning. I had my father's car. So I say, I gotta go. And he walked me to the car then, and it was at that time I said, are you doing anything New Year's Eve? My brother's turning 21 on New Year's Eve, and I'd love for you to come and meet my family. I'm setting this up for future, you know? I come at 7 o'clock, we'll have a dinner, dress, coat and tie, it's gonna be a formal. And 9 o'clock, he's still not there. He knocks on the door, I go, my sister says, he's so nice, yeah, 2 hours late, you know? And at the door he says, I really have to apologize. We're a one-car family, we have 7 kids. I'm the oldest at home, and I had to drive 6 others all over town. And I have to leave in a little while to pick them up. But he won favors with me for that answer. So right answer, but tell him what my father said to you.
She introduced him to her father, and he said, son, haven't I seen you before? I said, yes, sir. Last night I was at the seminarians' dinner and you served dinner to me. He turns to Laura and he says, I'm trying to get them into the priesthood and you're trying to get them out.
True story.
And she was.
I invited him up to Webster for a prom.
I was in the seminary in New Orleans, Louisiana.
And he lived in Memphis.
That's where we met in Memphis, but she went to school right around the corner at Webster. I was a very poor seminarian student in those days, and I had an aunt in New Orleans where I was going to school, and her father died. And so she said, a lot of people gave me money to have masses said for him. At the time, it was $40, but that was in 1968, that was a ton of money. And I apologized to anyone and God, because I used the money, not for the mass, but to get up here for the trip.
Okay, so I was 19 there and you were 23?
We visited the zoo, just walking hand in hand, so that was the fun part there. And then you wanted to show me the lake and the boathouse, so we came over there.
And so we said, let's just sit down for a while, and someone passed by and I handed them a camera and I said, would you please take our picture? And they said, sure. So this was really our first date. We were writing, he never wrote to me that he didn't take his vows. His vows were to be like May 4th. I hear this knock. I'm home from school. I said, Mike, what are you doing here? He said, I didn't take my vows, and I'm wondering if you'd like to date. And I go, oh, well, I will, but I'm only
Someday.
but I'm only going to be home for 2 weeks because I'm going to leave for a year in 2 weeks to go to Vienna. You said, I'll take the 2 weeks. I remember every word you said.
At the same time, this was the Vietnam era, and at the time, I'd just been drafted. So I got a job teaching, and I shipped myself off to DeLand, Florida to teach at a military
school.
So I was in Florida, and she was somewhere in Vienna and Salzburg for that year.
I was telling people that my boyfriend's coming over and we're going to camp out.
I spent 7 weeks traveling the countryside there.
So I proposed to him on the way down to my parents' house, and I said, why don't we get married, because my lease is up in May. And he said, nothing, crickets. And then I asked him again on the way back, and it was crickets. The third time was the charm. I said, well, I'm going to have to just rent an apartment somewhere.
I think that did it, because I'm a penny pincher.
And so we got married 6 weeks later. It was at a chapel at Christian Brothers College. Bought a cheap $25 white long prom dress.